الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى جميع الأنبياء والمرسلين. أما بعد. Alhamdulillah, we've been reciting Surat Al-Moominoon and Surat Al-Nur. There's a few ayat I would like to clarify and explain. Just a quick comment. Surat Al-Moominoon, as you see, when Allah talked about the believers, Mu'minun, He mentioned their qualities. The first quality He mentioned is الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ, the ones who have khushu' in salah. They focus, they humble themselves to Allah, and they concentrate in their salah. That is the first quality. And what is the last quality mentioned for them? وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ عَلَى صَلَوَاتِهِمْ يُحَافِظُونَ, they protect their salah. Subhanallah. Between this He mentioned other qualities, but the first quality was that they take care of their salah, they focus on it. And the last quality is that they protect their salah. Of course, there's a difference between the first and the last one, although it all relates to the salah. The first one means that they focus in the salah. Yuhafidun, they protect it, they keep its times, they don't let their businesses or their jobs make them lose the time for their salah and things like this. They basically protect the salah so that they can keep it in time and prevent distraction. But the first one is that they focus on their salah. This indicates that without the salah, basically our iman will be completely gone. And all the other qualities of iman will not come to us if we don't protect our salah. This is why Prophet ﷺ, when he gave the advice to the Sahaba, I think his name was Hudayfa, قال رأس الأمر الإسلام وعموده الصلاة. He says the major affair is the Islam, your Islam. وعموده الصلاة, its pillar and its foundation is the salah. So with the salah, as you know, in the salah تنهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر, it protects you from obscene things and from sins. تنهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر. On the opposite side, when we neglect our salah, our resistance, our immunity to falling into sins becomes very low. Allah says, فَخَلَفَ مِنْ بَعْدِهِمْ خَلْفٌ أَضَاعُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَاتَّبَعُوا الشَّهَوَاتِ. When you neglect your salah, you follow the shahawat. Shahawat means the sins. So basically the salah is the most important. Then another ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about then the prophets. He talked about several prophets and that they all have the same message. إِنَّ هَذِهِ أُمَّتُكُمْ أُمَّةً وَاحِدَةً وَأَنَا رَبُّكُمْ فَاتَّقُونَ. Your ummah is one, means your deen is one. You are following the same way, and I'm your only Lord. So it's all one message throughout all the prophets. But the problem is human beings took parts of this message. And then next ayah says, فَتَقَطَّعُوا أَمْرَهُمْ بَيْنَهُمْ زُبُرًا. They tore it apart into several pieces. This is just like having a big piece of cloth like this, and a group of people are fighting, and everyone pulls from one corner, and he takes that piece that came out in his hand. Allah says, فَتَقَطَّعُوا أَمْرَهُمْ بَيْنَهُمْ زُبُرًا كُلُّ حِزْبٍ بِمَا لَدَيْهِمْ فَرِحُونَ. He took this piece, and he ran away with it, very happy, thinking that he has got the full picture. And he hasn't, he only got a small piece. And that's basically what is happening in all the people who were given messages before us. They don't have the complete message. They have bits and pieces. They're not completely devoid of any guidance. There is some in their messages, because it talks about God is one. For instance, the Jews believe that God is one. His attributes, many of the attributes we believe in Allah, they believe in it as well. They believe in the prophets. So they have bits and pieces of guidance, but they don't have the complete and final message which is accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. كُلُّ حِزْبٍ بِمَا لَدَيْهِمْ فَرِحُونَ. They're just happy with it. When you're happy with what you have, you won't listen to anyone else, and they don't want to listen. كُلُّ حِزْبٍ بِمَا لَدَيْهِمْ فَرِحُونَ. Allah says, فَذَرْهُمْ فِي غَمْرَتِهِمْ حَتَّى حِينٍ. Since somebody is like this, he's not, guys, listen and concentrate. They won't listen to any guidance. فَذَرْهُمْ فِي غَمْرَتِهِمْ حَتَّى حِينٍ. When you don't listen, this is just like you've immersed yourself under water. And anyone on top of the water calling upon you, will you hear him? No matter how loud he is, you won't hear it. This is the meaning of ghamra. Ghamra means immersed, deep. فِي غَمْرَتِهِمْ حَتَّى حِينٍ. Just leave them alone. حَتَّى حِينٍ. Just for a short period of time, until of course they meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then they will know that they were not on the right path. But also Ghamra, they have engulfed themselves and covered themselves with all these falsehoods. Yeah, like they have books and they have explanations of their books, and they have so many things. You would think that they are on the right religion, and they are not. فَذَرْهُمْ فِي غَمْرَتِهِمْ حَتَّى حِينٍ. They just cover themselves with all this falsehood. Now, and then they are also fooled by the fact that Allah is giving them in this dunya. Allah says, أَيَحْسَبُونَ أَنَّمَا نُمِدُّهُمْ بِهِ مِنْ مَالٍ وَبَنِينَ نُسَارِعُ لَهُمْ فِي الْخَيْرَاتِ بَلْ لَا يَشْعُرُونَ. You should not think that because I give them money and I give them wealth and I give them families and stuff like this, that they are on the right path. بَلْ لَا يَشْعُرُونَ. They have no understanding whatsoever. And then Allah talked about the people who are on the true religion. So the previous people are on the false religion, and they are happy and they feel content and they feel safe. But the people who are on the true religion, Allah talks about them and says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ هُمْ مِنْ خَشْيَةِ رَبِّهِمْ مُشْفِقُونَ. They are always afraid of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. خَشْيَةِ رَبِّهِمْ مُشْفِقُونَ. They have worry and they are afraid of Allah. And then it says, وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ بِآيَاتِ رَبِّهِمْ يُؤْمِنُونَ. And they believe in Allah's ayat. وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ بِرَبِّهِمْ لَا يُشْرِكُونَ. They don't associate in His worship. وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْتُونَ مَا أَتَوْا وَقُلُوبُهُمْ وَجِلَةٌ أَنَّهُمْ إِلَى رَبِّهِمْ رَاجِعُونَ. And they do whatever they do while their hearts are full of fear that they are meeting the Lord. Of course, Aisha radiallahu anha asked the Prophet ﷺ, said about this ayah, هو الذي يسرق ويزني ويشرب الخمر ثم يخاف الله فقال لا ابنة الصديق إنما هو الذي يصلي ويصوم ويتصدق ثم يخاف أن لا يقبل منه. She asked him, oh, this ayah is talking about those people who commit sins. They steal, they commit adultery, and they drink alcohol, and then they're afraid that Allah will punish them, because this is what the ayah says. They do what they do while they are afraid. He says, no, daughter of Siddiq. This ayah is talking about those people who do the righteous deeds. They pray, they give their zakah, and they fast. And at the same time, they are worried that Allah might not accept. So this ayah is talking about the righteous people. But those people who have these qualities, who are always worried, Allah says, أُولَٰئِكَ يُسَارِعُونَ فِي الْخَيْرَاتِ وَهُمْ لَهَا سَابِقُونَ. Those are speedy. They are ahead of everyone else. وَهُمْ لَهَا سَابِقُونَ. They are at the first line. And then Allah says, وَلَا نُكَلِّفُ نَفْسًا إِلَّا وُسْعَهَا. This high level, although if people think about it, they think it's impossible to reach these levels. And if somebody is not a Muslim, he would think, oh, how can you keep all your salah 5 times a day in the busy schedule? How can you do this? How can you fast all day, 12 or 17 hours? How can you do these things? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explains here and says, وَلَا نُكَلِّفُ نَفْسًا إِلَّا وُسْعَهَا. He says, all my commandments are within the capacity of the human beings. Even reaching these very high levels of righteousness and piety are not beyond the reach of human beings. With the help of Allah, Prophet ﷺ says to the Sahaba, إِنَّهُ لَكَبِيرٌ وَلَكِنَّهُ يَسِيرٌ عَلَى مَنْ يَسَّرَهُ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ. He says, yes, it's a major thing to do all these things, but it is easy for those Allah has made it easy for. وَلَكِنَّهُ يَسِيرٌ عَلَى مَنْ يَسَّرَهُ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ. وَلَا نُكَلِّفُ نَفْسًا إِلَّا وُسْعَهَا. وُسْعَهَا means not only within the capacity. Wus'aha means they still have a lot of ability beyond that. The orders of Allah and commandments of Allah not only are within our capacity, but we still have more than this that we can do. You do the salah 5 times a day, but you're free the rest of the day. You fast only 1 month of the year, but you can eat the whole year. A few things are haram, but you can eat anything else. So it's definitely within the capacity of the people. So why people cannot keep up with this? The people who cannot, Allah says, بَلْ قُلُوبُهُمْ فِي غَمْرَةٍ مِنْ هَذَا وَلَهُمْ أَعْمَالٌ مِنْ دُونِ ذَلِكَ هُمْ لَهَا عَامِلُونَ. Those are the people who do not pay attention to the deen. They are busy with something else. Busy with maybe their desires, busy with some sins, busy with something that is not of value in this dunya or for the akhirah. فَالْقُلُوبُهُمْ فِي غَمْرَةٍ. Again, they've immersed themselves in something else. وَلَهُمْ أَعْمَالٌ مِنْ دُونِ ذَلِكَ لَهَا عَامِلُونَ. I will finish quickly for the time's sake, but Surat Al-Nur, we've been reading the Surat Al-Nur, and I will not explain in detail, but as you see, Surat Al-Nur, Nur means light, and it talks about the light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, meaning the guidance. And if you look at the surah from the beginning, it all talks about chastity. How to keep yourself with chastity and not fall into the sin of zina, adultery, and fornication. How do you avoid that? So if you look at the surah from the beginning, it talks about the punishment of zina, committing adultery. And then it talks about forbidding people talking bad about like this woman has done this and this man has done this. This is called qadf al-muhsanat. You should not talk about these things. And then it talks about keeping the families. And it talks about prohibition again of spreading rumors about people, and especially that relate to sexual matters. And it talks about not following the shaitan. And it talks about protecting the houses, and that you should knock on the doors before you enter the house so that you don't see something you're not allowed to see. And then it talks about lowering your gaze and not looking at everything. Some things you cannot look at. And then it talks about حفظ الفرج, which means to protect your private parts. Then it talks about hijab. If you look, this is all one subject, which is to keep the community clean. And it's only marriage. And then it talks about getting the young people married quickly. وَأَنْكِحُوا الْأَيَامَ مِنْكُمُ الصَّالِحِينَ مِنْ عِبَادِكُمْ وَإِمَائِكُمْ. As soon as you can get married, you get married. And then Allah will provide for them. Don't worry about being poor. Allah will provide for you. And it prohibits also prostitution. وَلَا تُكْرِهُ فَتَيَاتِكُمْ عَلَى الْبِغَاءِ. And it talks about freeing the slaves, because slaves were known to be involved in prostitution. The slave women. So if you look at all this, it is to keep the community clean. After all this, Allah talks about giving the light. Allahu nuru as-samawati wal-ard mathalu nurihi. Which means that if we cannot keep ourselves and our community clean, we are deprived from the guidance. We deprive ourselves from the guidance of Allah. One of the scientific miracles of the Quran mentioned in the ayat in Surat Al-Moominoon, when it talks about the deep sea, that it is darkness on top of darkness, that at the bottom of the sea, even if you put your hand out like this, you cannot see it. Of course, this is a fact that has only become to people, to recognition, and people have just known about it in the past maybe 40 or 50 years, that the deep sea is not like here. You can see the light. Even in the daylight, the deep sea is dark, pitch black. You cannot see anything, and that is mentioned in this ayah. But look at this, Allah talks about this, and then immediately talks about the clouds. So from the bottom of the sea immediately to the heavens, and then talks about how the cloud forms the rain. That it layer on top of layer, ثم يجعله ركاما, layer on top of layer. Once it gets to a specific level, فَتَرَى الْوَدْقَ يَخْرُجُ مِنْ خِلَالِ. That is when you see the raindrops forming, because when you go up higher, it becomes cooler, and the vapor condenses into small water drops and then falls. And then the higher it is, it becomes cooler and cooler, and then that is when you form the hail. Because he says, وَيُنَزِّلُ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مِنْ جِبَالٍ. The clouds that are in the form of mountains that are very high, those form the hail. Again, these scientific facts are amazing. People only knew about them, and that's why even in books of science they call it cumulative cloud, because it's called cumulative cloud, cumulus cloud. These facts. So from the bottom of the sea to the heaven immediately in 2 ayat, these facts were not known to human beings except in the past, maybe within the past 100 years. Inshallah, we'll stop here.